the moon of Muharram, times of sadness have come. The crescent has now arrived, casting gloom on Karbala, casting gloom on Karbala. The moon of Muharram, times of sadness have come. The crescent has now arrived, casting gloom on Karbala, casting gloom on Karbala. Betrayal by the Kufans set this moon on its course, calling out for their guide. Treachery with no remorse, Muslim and his sons. What a tragedy! Oh, what calamity! The moon bleeds to foresee. The moon bleeds to foresee. The moon of Muharram, times of sadness have come. The crescent has now arrived, casting gloom on Karbala, casting gloom on Karbala. On the 9th it heard the prayers of those pure souls, fought the rising sun for. Perhaps this could be its role. Akbar's azan so clear, this moon filled with fear. How will it possibly arise and see the state of those dear, and see the state of those dear? The moon of Muharram, times of sadness have come. The crescent has now arrived, casting gloom on Karbala, casting gloom on Karbala. It saw the 6-month infant, no water but an arrow. That night it shone its light on, Rabab filled with such sorrow. To see my asghar I crave, I hear nothing but his cries. Oh son, please do not arise, and with this mother sympathize, and with this mother sympathize. The moon of Muharram, times of sadness have come. The crescent has now arrived, casting gloom on Karbala, casting gloom on Karbala. Witnessed it the trampling on Sham-e-Ghariba, saw that night the terror, bodies scattered afar, tents looted and on fire, earrings snatched from Ruqayyah. This moon also in such pains, this household bound in chains, this household bound in chains. The moon of Muharram, times of sadness have come. The crescent has now arrived, casting gloom on Karbala, casting gloom on Karbala. From this month my Bibi had to wander veilless. Zahra's grave is restless, a daughter princess, the cloak of purity. For this mother so holy, the beloved of Fatima, paraded in the bazaar, paraded in the bazaar. The moon of Muharram, times of sadness have come. The crescent has now arrived, casting gloom on Karbala, casting gloom on Karbala, casting gloom on Karbala.
ولقد أوحي إليك وإلى الذين من قبلك لئن أشركت ليحبطن عملك ولتكونن من الخاسرين بل الله فاعبد وكن من الشاكرين وما قدروا الله حق قدره والأرض جميعا قبضته يوم القيامة والسماوات مطويات بيمينه سبحانه وتعالى عما يشركون ونفخ في الصور فصعق من في السماوات ومن في الأرض إلا من شاء الله ثم نفخ فيه أخرى فإذا هم قيام ينظرون وأشرقت الأرض بنور ربها ووضع الكتاب وجيء بالنبيين والشهداء وقضي بينهم بالحق وهم لا يظلمون ووفيت كل نفس ما عملت وهو أعلم بما يفعلون صدق الله العلي العظيم. اللهم صل على محمد.
Name of God, God of mercy, the giver of mercy. Say, do you worship someone other than God? It has already been revealed to you and those before you. You ascribe any partner to God, all your work will come to nothing. You will be one of the losers. No, worship God alone and be those who are grateful to Him. These people have no grasp of God's truth measure. On the day of resurrection, the whole earth will be in His grip. The heavens will be rolled up in His right hand. Glory be to Him. He is far above the partners they ascribe to Him. The trumpet will be sounded, and everybody in the heavens and earth will fall down senseless except those God spares. It will be sounded once again, and they will be on their feet, looking on. The earth will shine, and with light of His Lord, the record of His deeds will be laid open. The prophets and witnesses will be brought in. Fair judgment will be given between the witnesses will be brought in. They will be not wronged, and every soul will be repaired in full what it has been done. He knows what's best and what they do.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Yesterday, I was very encouraged. There's a young member of our audience who came up to me and says, I would like to recite poetry for Imam Hussein. So he's very delighted, very pleased to invite Sister Zara Asfahani to come and share with us what she has written. She has written this poetry herself. Please welcome with loud salawat. Allah we can see you.
Hi, Assalamu alaikum. My name is Ahmed Nur Isfahani, and I'm gonna be reading a poem called the Imam Hussein alayhi salam poem. I wrote this from my imagination, and some of the words rhyme and some of them don't. Anyways, I hope you like it. Zainab is a very brave woman. She always protects her brother. Zainab happens to be the name of my mother. If you ever see her, she'll give you a bumble, just like Imam Hussein alayhi salam, because she is very humble. Zahra is Imam Hussein's mother. It is also my name, like no other. Imam Hussein alayhi salam is a big star. Imam Hussein alayhi salam fought the evil. He probably had a thought that I am brave. It's kind of like if he fought through a cave. Imam Hussein alayhi salam tried really hard to fight for freedom. When he fought the evil, I imagine it went like that. Ow, zing. Wow, Imam Hussein alayhi salam is really amazing. That's all I have to say, but I might see you another day.
Thank you.
So you asked Zara yesterday that when you like to recite it when there are lots of people or few people. She said when there are not few people. But I told Zara that she can recite a new one every day here. Okay, you're the same one. Okay, right? So Zara, we look forward to your hearing tomorrow. Okay. Thank you. Sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Now we'll request our brother Mujahid to come and recite Marthiya for tonight.
Shahnshahi Kainat, Imam Zamana Salawat. So the Moshe I'm reciting today is actually a dua from us to Imam Hussein for us to be able to get the labbaik, for us to be able to go see his shrine. So let's open our hearts and our hands and pray that we all get that in the near future, inshallah. Dua ta'ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad.
Allahumma salli ala
करबला में बुला अपना रोजा दिखाया शहे करबला करबला में बुला अपना रोजा दिखाया शहे करबला اس جگہ پہ رکھیں گے ہم اپنی جبین، چوم کے خاک کو ہوگا ہم کو یقین، یہ وہی خاک ہے، یہ وہی سرزمین میرے آقا حسین، اب ہمیں دو صدا یا شہ کربلا، کربلا میں بلا، اپنا روزہ دکھا یا شہ کربلا، جس جگہ پہ گرا تھا تیرا باوفا، آخری سانس میں جس نے دی صدا، اس جگہ سے ہٹا وہ نہ لاشا میرا، ہم کو ہے دیکھنا لب الکما یا شہ کربلا، کربلا میں بلا، اپنا روزہ دکھا یا شہ کربلا، جس زمین پہ پڑا تیرا کریل جوان، خاک اپنے جگر میں وہ ہائے سینہ، تم کو اکبر کا ہم دے گے پرسا وہاں، اور وہاں ہر گئی ہم کریں گے عزا یا شہ کربلا، کربلا میں بلا، اپنا روزہ دکھا یا شہ کربلا، ننھا سا وہ گلا جس جگہ چھد گیا، اور تھا اس کا خون تیرے منہ پہ ملا، سوئے خیمہ کھڑی ماں نے دیے صدا، پانی کا گونٹھ بھی کیا میسر ہوا یا شہ کربلا، کربلا میں بلا، اپنا روزہ دکھا یا شہ کربلا، بے پسر ماؤں کو مولا دے دے پسر، جس کے دل میں دعا ہے وہ مقبول کر، ہے یہ سب کو یقین، ہے یہ سب کو خبر، تو ہے مشکل کشا، تو ہے حاجت روا یا شہ کربلا، کربلا میں بلا، اپنا روزہ دکھا یا شہ کربلا، مولا عابد کا ہے آپ کو واسطہ، لا دوا جو مریض ہے انہیں دے شفا، ہم کو ہے آسرا ہے گئی آپ کا نام ہی ہے بڑا معجزہ یا شہ کربلا، کربلا میں بلا، اپنا روزہ دکھا یا شہ کربلا، تیرے روزے پہ جائیں گی یہ نظر، اشک بہتا رہے گا تیرے نام پر، रोएंगे कह के ये दिल को हम थाम कर, हमको है ये यकीन खुद है करबला या शहे करबला, करबला में बुला अपना रोजा दिखा या शहे करबला, करबला में बुला अपना रोजा दिखा या शहे करबला। मोहम्मद व आल मोहम्मद। अल्लाह मुनकर अल-फातिहा।
Thank you, Zara. Thank you, Brother Mujahid, for a beautiful meditation. I was wondering if there's anybody here who would like to recite Marthiya. If not today, tomorrow, just contact us and we'll try to accommodate you. Also, we're looking for people who can recite the Nawa. Today, to help you remind you of my daily ask, which is to give importance to prayer, I will be putting a gift for you guys, okay, a little necklace, which will be out available. You can wear it. It might remind you that you have to go to prayer at the Iman Center if you can, okay? So this is something, a gift that you know, it's a nice thing. It says that if they're members of Allah, we get contentment. So this will be my short announcement today. And with this, I'm going to request our speaker, guest speaker, Sayyid Kermani, to come and address us for tonight. Sallu ala Nabi.
बर मोहम्मद आले
أعوذ بالله
मोहम्मद
من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم فوض أمري إلى الله إن الله بصير بالعباد ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل نعم المولى ونعم النصير والصلاة والسلام والتحية والإكرام على الرسول المسدد المصطفى الأمجد المحمود الأحمد الذي سمي في السماء بأحمد في الأرض بأبي القاسم محمد الله وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين المنتجبين الذين أذهب الله عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا. قل رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. بعد قال الله تبارك وتعالى في كتابه الكريم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم حسبت أن أصحاب الكهف والرقيم كانوا من آياتنا عجبا صدق الله العلي العظيم زينوا مجالسكم بالصلوات على محمد وآل محمد. My respected elders, brothers and sisters, and youngsters, Islam and Iman here in Seattle, across the globe, wherever you're hearing my voice, Salamun alaikum jamia wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Question, what is justice? If you go to the Supreme Court of the United States, the highest court in the land, and one of the most prominent institutions in the world with respect to justice, in there, and I recommend that you all go, you will find in the Supreme Court of the United States artwork that is historic in nature. And in this artwork, you will find some paintings, and amongst the paintings, you will also find other forms of artwork. You will find, for example, stonework, marble work that is there till this day. And one of the artworks that you will find in the Supreme Court of the United States of America is stonework that has been etched into stone into the walls of the Supreme Court. And one of these artworks has the main lawgivers of history. And when you look at this artwork, you will find that you will see etched in the stone till this day the likes of Hammurabi and Hammurabi's code. You will find in the artwork the likes of Musa or Moses as he's known, and the 10 Commandments. These are the major lawgivers of history. And till this day, in the Supreme Court of the United States, along with Hammurabi, along with Moses, the greatest lawgivers in history, till this day, etched in stone, you will find an image of the Holy Prophet Muhammad. And at that point in time, the question that emerges is, why is the image of the Prophet, who Muslims don't even make an image of him, in the Supreme Court of the United States, which in its essence has separation of church and state? And in fact, you'll come forward and analyze this further, that organizations such as CARE about 20 years ago tried to have it removed by saying, look, as Muslims, we don't make depictions of the Prophet in his physical nature. And the Supreme Court said, thank you, but no thank you. We've kept it out of respect of this individual. So the question that comes forward is America or is the United States anti-Islam or not? That's a question that we need to investigate. And the more you investigate this question, and the more we will in the subsequent nights, you will find that Islam has a very integral relationship with the early part of America. You will find the founding fathers had an intimate relationship with the Qur'an, which I will elaborate in the next few nights. That is, Islam was not seen as something that was adversarial to America. Rather, it was seen as something complementary or in fact supplemental to America. And I will elaborate on that in subsequent nights. But the question I have to ask myself and you tonight is that if Rasulullah, the Holy Prophet, is depicted in the Supreme Court, the highest court in the land, as one of the greatest lawgivers of society, how much do I know about what Rasulullah actually stood for? What did he stand for? And what was his message? And how did he shift the paradigm of society in a matter of 23 years? Therefore, tonight our conversation revolves around understanding what is justice and why is it so pivotal, number one. Number two, what is the relationship between justice and freedom, which we discussed last night. At the third level, what is the relationship between justice and Islam? Has Islam said anything about justice? And if so, what has Islam said about justice? And why is it so integral? The fourth level, what is it with respect to the teachings of the Ahlul Bayt, the Qur'an and the Ahlul Bayt? They teach us, what do they teach us about justice in society? What did Rasulullah do? What did Imam Ali do? What did Imam Hussein alayhi salam do? And that is, how did Imam Hussein alayhi salam show us that one needs to rise for justice? But was he the first, or was he just following in the footsteps of his predecessors, his father and his grandfather? That's something we'll look at. The fifth thing that we'll look at is, do we truly have justice in society, in America and across the globe, in our world? And what is our responsibility relating to that, especially when we look at the future of Islam in America and across the globe? And then finally, we'll remember and commemorate how Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam on the plains of Karbala showed once again that justice is tantamount and primary and paramount in order for society to have freedom. This is our agenda for tonight. Wherever you are, here in Seattle or across the globe, from the bottom of your heart, send a salawat on Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. At the first level, to tie in some of the elements of the equation that we've been discussing, what is the relationship of last night's lecture? I realize that sometimes I'm going at breakneck speed. And I realize that, and I'm telling you this on the onset because I'm not here to fill up your time. Many times when it comes to speaking in our communities, with due respect, the idea is, let's fill up the time. And by the way, every community is different. You have to understand the dynamics. I remember I was in Chicago, which I'm going to later this year. And my first lecture I recited there, I recited about 51 minutes. And they said, this is an amazing lecture. This is phenomenal. This is wonderful. There's only one problem. Sure, what's the problem? I'm always open to feedback. So it's too short. Like, in my neck of the woods, you hit 45 minutes. They're like, whoa. They said, go as long as you want. So the next day I did 1 hour, 15 minutes. And the third day I did an hour and a half. Now, I'm not telling you to stay here for an hour and a half, but that was the dynamic of that particular community. And so what I'm saying here is, with respect to what we're dealing with here, there's a lot to say, and I have to cut a lot back. So why did I mention the French Revolution yesterday? What were we talking about? Let's recap that very quickly because some people may have missed that. And it's really difficult because you have so many age groups that you're dealing with in Majalis. You have children and you have adults who've seen the world. And trying to balance that is a very difficult, tall order. So how do you get everyone to understand? The way that this happens is that there has to be community dialogues where the parents and the children are conversing before, during, and after the program, at least before and after. And there's a conversation that ensues about what did this mean, what did that mean? Because I can't cover everything. And I told you from the beginning to outsource the thinking to the member and only rely on the member in order to get your Islam is not sufficient whatsoever. The style and the type of Islam that we get from the member is a very thin slice of Islam, and it's a non-comprehensive slice of Islam. That means that when you read the books, you'll find many things that are never discussed from the member. So it's important to invest the time. But one thing that I'm going to elaborate on in the next few nights is when I say incentives and when I say what's our shawarma and kubida and biryani, I'm not saying food, I'm not saying this. The mosque today, the masjid today, the Husainiyah today, we view it as a zero-sum game. Zero-sum meaning if I come to the mosque, I have to by necessity miss out on something else. I miss out on my school, I miss out on my work, I miss out on something else. So one answer to this may be to help align the incentives of what people are looking after in this world with the mosque. If people want their children to go to Harvard and Princeton and Stanford, that's not un-Islamic. So you make the masjid or the Husaini or the Imam Bargah a place where their kids can go to the Ivy Leagues of the world. If they want to get into Amazon and Microsoft and Apple and Google, that's the biryani and kubide and the extra shawarma of the day. I don't want to miss any ethnicity. And that's what we need to do, that this place becomes a vehicle not only for ibadah, not only for worship, but also to get people in the top institutions. Then people won't see it like, oh, I have to go to mosque. That means I have to compromise something else. That is coming to mosque. These majalis are the university of Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam. How is it possible that this is seen as something that takes away from my knowledge pursuit, from my intellectual pursuit, from my work pursuit? But yet that is what has happened. That's why you see on a Monday, there are less people. You see on a Tuesday, there's less people. And as the weekend approaches, more people start coming. I'm not blaming anyone. Alhamdulillah, we have technology you can watch online today. But I'm trying to identify the drifts of our society about what's happening. Every society has a drift. Our society has a drift. You go to America, religiosity and religion differs heavily in America. You go to the East Coast and the Northeast, it's very different. You go to the south of America, from Virginia to Texas, it's called the Bible Belt. It's much more religious. You go to the Midwest, it's not as religious as the South, but it's not as secular as the Northeast. It's somewhere in between. You still get a lot of religious people. You go to the West Coast, it's a totally different ballgame, which I'll come to in a few nights. Your environment has an impact. What I said a couple of nights ago, philosophers in the past said, I don't need to know your name, address, anything. All I need to know is what is your zaman and makan, time and space, and I can tell you your own thoughts. In fact, I was talking to one of my friends who's a physician, and he said, do you know in med school, they told us one of the best, you know what the best predictor we have of someone's life expectancy is today? Their zip code. If I know your zip code, I know with a very good, strong indication, perhaps in what range you will live. That means that not only at the national level, at the granular level, it has an impact on how we exist. So we need to be mindful of this. Now, coming to this notion of justice, the prerequisite to freedom is justice. That's why I mentioned what I mentioned last night, that the ideals of the French Revolution, which the world is modeled on today, were actually ideals: liberty, equality, fraternity. Now, perhaps one thing that I may have run over that you may not have been able to catch is liberty is synonymous with freedom. Freedom means liberty. Liberty means freedom. What did H.G. Wells say? Second, fraternity is brotherhood. H.G. Wells said brotherhood. Fraternity is brotherhood. Equality, we say in English, egalitarianism. But in French, they called equality, equality. That's where the Latin comes from. And so equality, these were the three things that H.G. Wells said Islam had fundamentally in it. But somehow along the way, as Muslims, the Muslim world lost liberty. It lost fraternity. It lost equality. And that's why Islam's graph fell, one of the reasons. It is for this reason why Rasulullah stood up, to make sure everyone had a fair shot in society. It's this reason why Imam Ali stood up. It's this reason why Imam Hussein alayhi salam stood up. That's why I mentioned that if you want to understand freedom and you understand what's vital in our society, you need to understand what happens in society. Therefore, now coming to justice. I just mentioned the example of the Supreme Court. Now come to our world. With respect to this notion of justice, we said that there's a paradigm that you can follow in the pages of history of Islam, the Bible, the Torah, and the Abrahamic faiths, and the faiths of Allah. Meaning what? You fight and you struggle for justice where you are. If you're not able to achieve it, you then migrate. And you try to establish this justice in this new land, this new world. And this is the history of what happened in religions, and this is what the history of happened in the world. We get, for example, the likes of Musa and the people of Musa, they're migrating. And eventually they're delivered by Allah. Or for example, you have the likes of, in the modern era and modern time, America, the history of America. Persecution in Europe, Protestants are persecuted in Europe. They can't get justice. They migrate to the New World and they try to establish justice in the New World, which we now call America. So justice is primary in society. Why is it so important? Rasulullah, as I mentioned the night before, he was the first documented anti-racist in history according to the Emir Stein Institute. Meaning, before Rasulullah, other people came forward and said, I'm not going to be racist myself, but I don't tell other people, you don't have to be racist. Rasulullah actively told people, you can't be racist. It doesn't work like that. He says, when he gives the statement, no Arab is better than a non-Arab and no non-Arab is better than an Arab, except on the basis of taqwa or piety, he shifted the paradigm completely. Do you know how the Arabs before Islam used to divide the world? Arab and Ajam. Do you know the root word where Ajam comes from? Ajam literally meant someone who is mute, someone who cannot speak. This is how much pride they had in their language, that either you speak it and you are Arab, if you don't, you are mute. And for them to hear Rasulullah say that you're all the same, it was very difficult. But Rasulullah said, this is justice. Similarly, when you go down this road and you find, and you go further on this, when we come to the life of the Ahlul Bayt, I want you to always read and remember the khutbah Fadakiyah. That is that khutbah of Lady Fatima that she gave with respect to Fadak. We call it Fadakiyah because we think it's about Fadak, but it's not really about Fadak. It's about much higher principles. And she says in that, for example, when she's speaking to the Khalif on the other side, she says, look, she gives reasoning, she gives praise to Allah, and she recollects what the Messenger of Rasulullah did. And eventually she gets to a point as to why Allah ordained some of these things. You know, we've been saying we should come to the mosque. Everywhere I go, in my neck of the woods, you know, by the way, masjids are in the Shia community, we don't have enough, unfortunately. You can count on your fingers how many Shia mosques we have in America. And still, after they've been built coast to coast, everywhere I go, those people who have built masjid, they're saying, people, please come to the masjid. Nobody's coming to the masjid. You know, the masjid has rights. You know that the narration says the Qur'an has rights and the masjid has rights. That is, if there's a masjid in your proximity and you don't go there, you'll be liable on the day of judgment. The mosque will complain to God that I was there and I was vacant. Nobody was coming. Similarly, the Qur'an will complain that, for example, this is the case. Now, here's the challenge I need to make known to the other generations. We have several generations here. Now, the world, that those who came from other parts of the world, they had this concept of this belief in the unseen. The Quran itself says, ذَلِكَ الْكِتَابُ لَا رَيْبَ فِيهِ هُدًى لِلْمُتَّقِينَ الَّذِينَ يُؤْمِنُونَ بِالْغَيْبِ. The Quran says, right in Surah Baqarah, right in the beginning. It says right on the onset that this book is a book of guidance, not for everybody, but for those people who are the believers, but those who believe in the unseen. Now, how is somebody who's grown up in this part of the world and every single thing is based on the material? Every single thing is based on, is it experimentally proven or not? Is there evidence? Is it empirical? How do you tell that person that there's another world? You say you've lost your marbles. You've lost it. You've got some screws loose. And so this is one of the things that we're dealing with. People don't postpone what they know to be true for something they have no evidence of. So that's the fundamental issue that needs to be addressed. Not pray, read namaz, come to the masjid. I'm hearing coast to coast, everyone come to. That means that the essence hasn't fallen through. The person who's inviting to the mosque is not wrong. They're doing Allah's work. They're doing great work. But the question is, why is it not having an impact on the other side? I'll give you an example. On the day of Ashura, Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam, he looks at the army of Yazid and he gives a khutbah ceremony. And he tells them, do you not know who I am? Do you not know I'm the son of Fatima al-Zahra? Do you not know that I am the son of Rasulullah, the grandson of Rasulullah? I'm the son of Ali al-Murtaza. Do you not know who I am? And he gave this dalil and that dalil. But as soon as he finished, it's called the khutbah of the camel. He stood on a camel, he gets down, he turns around, he looks at Abu al-Fadl Abbas, says, Abbas, let's go. Not a single thing that I've said will impact them. Why? بُطُونُكُم مِّنَ الْحَرَامِ. Their stomachs are filled with haram. Won't happen, won't work. So why did the Imam say it? When he knows this. Ihtimam hujjah, what we mentioned the other night. The Imam has a responsibility to do the just thing, to give them the information. Whether they act on it or not is on them. Because otherwise they could complain to God, nobody told me, I didn't know. That's the principle and the essence of the matter. Do we truly seep these principles into our heart and our mind? So Lady Fatima in her khutbah Qadakiyah, she comes forward and she says, look, Allah ordained prayer, why? To put humility in your hearts. If you reverse engineer this, that means if I pray but I don't have humility, that means my prayer is missing the mark. By the way, sin, in the Judeo-Christian Islam, that word, it actually comes from to miss the mark. That's exactly what's happening. That means that if I have takabbur, if I have arrogance, and I'm praying, that means that salah is not hitting its mark. To humble yourself. We are all servants before Allah. Number one. Number two, this is the line that I want to share with you. She said, Allah wanted to establish justice amongst you so that there is harmony between your hearts and love and compassion between your hearts. Meaning what? If you reverse engineer this, you find that if there is no harmony between the hearts, that means justice has not fully been established in society. Third point with respect to the Islamic principle. Imam Amir al-Mu'minin, Imam Ali in Nahjul Balagha, according to narrations, he gives a statement when he was asked a question, which I invite you to read. And Mutahari, Sheikh Mutahari, Murtaza Mutahari comments on this, and I want to share this with you. Again, when I take a name doesn't mean I agree with everything or disagree with everything. I'm just giving this particular instance. Now, the question Imam Ali is asked is between generosity and between justice. What is better? Good question. Now the person comes forward and says, what's better, generosity or justice? You see in our world, there's many philanthropists or many people who are very wealthy, billionaires and the likes, and they start charitable causes and philanthropy and this foundation and that foundation. You have some renowned ones right in your neck of the woods. But hold on a second. What's primary? What's better, generosity or justice? Imam Ali responds and he says, look, between justice and generosity, by the way, this is going to be counterintuitive, so I'm telling you right away. I mentioned this in one community and this physician said, I've never heard this, I don't believe it. Next week he came back and he said, I looked at all the references, you're absolutely right. So keep this in mind. He says, look, generosity or justice, what's better? Imam said, both are noble, both are good, no doubt about it. But if you're asking which is better between the two, both who go in the pursuit of justice or generosity, both will get to the noble ends, no doubt. But if you're asking which is superior between the two, justice is primary over generosity. Why? Mutahari then comments. He says the example is, in one way, in our language, you have these freeways, you have this 405 and 90 and these roads. Imagine you're on a highway and you're going down the highway, it's rush hour, you're trying to get home, you're trying to get to the masjid, you're trying to get to the Imam Barga. Some people, or the Husainiyah, some people may not have been able to make it to the center of the mosque because maybe they're in traffic, maybe they got late. So we should always give people the benefit of the doubt. So you're in traffic and there's an accident, all lanes are blocked, 4 lanes. Let's say we're going one way, 4 lanes, all blocked. And let's say you open, the officers and the people, the traffic police, they open one lane, one exit for people to get off on. He said, this is the example of justice and generosity. When justice is not established in society, it is like the road on the highway is blocked. The lanes of the highway are blocked. And generosity is needed, and that generosity is opening one exit where a few cars can get off on the exit. Not everybody. But justice, to establish justice and root out injustice, is to remove the blockade that is blocking all 4 lanes. Which, if you follow that progression, you realize that if true justice is established in society, there is no need for generosity. The need for generosity arises when people's rights are not met. I went to downtown Seattle, which I was very excited to see, you know, that the city that has done so much for the world, in terms of technology, in terms of all of this. And I was heartbroken for the amount of homelessness I saw in this. It's the same in Los Angeles. I was in Los Angeles. I was in San Francisco. These places have produced billions of dollars in terms of wealth. You see some of the people who don't have food to eat. I saw someone pick up, with my own eyes, pick up food from the trash and begin to eat it. In 2022, in the United States of America, what is going on? Allah may ask you, Allah may ask me, what did I do to swing the pendulum of justice? And we may say, what can we do? I tell you, you can do a lot. If you get organized, if you get honest and you make it a priority. We say Imam Ali was sitting at home for 25 years when his right was usurped. Really? Was he not feeding the poor at night? Was he not taking food and sacks of food on his back and feeding the poor in the middle of the night? Was he not making sure that he would look after the poor, the orphan, the destitute? Was Imam Ali not living, breathing justice at every time? I'm telling you with sincerity, and forgive me if this comes out harsh, I'm not just speaking to you, I'm speaking to our community globally. And when I criticize, I don't mean to be like this. And that doesn't mean that every other community is perfect. I'm talking to the community that I'm a part of, because I'm in the ship with you. That doesn't mean that other communities don't have problems. Of course they do. But in our communities, do you know what the paradigm is become? Have you heard of this old saying, keeping up with the Joneses? In the Indian community, they call it keeping up with the Patels. When you go to Dearborn's, keeping up with the Bazis, for example. This is keeping up with people. They got a nice car, I got to get a nice car. They got their kitchen redone, I have to get my kitchen redone. They got a pool, I got to get my pool. And you see everywhere in our communities, what's ending up happening is people are coming forward and say, oh, I'm renovating my kitchen, I got to buy a bigger house, I have to buy a nicer car, I have to do this, I have to change my furniture. And you're thinking, is this aligned with the message of Imam al-Hussein? Is this aligned with how Imam Ali lived? Is this aligned with how the Ahlul Bayt lived? This level of extravagance, this level of materialism with everyone. But if Imam Ali was here right now, if Imam Hussein was here right now, would they be so concerned with trying to get a bigger house and a bigger car and a bigger X, Y, and Z? Or would they actually be trying to feed the poor and trying to stop poverty in downtown? Would they be trying to, for example, making sure there's economic justice, making sure there's social justice? Because that's what they did in their time. And they did that regardless of caste, color, and creed. I want to tell you something. Islam is right here, right now. Islam is not on your deathbed. Islam is not when I'm in my 90s. Islam is right here, right now. If I work for a company and my company is becoming very rich, but there's some people who want to unionize, and I'm in the upper echelons of management. What do I do? If I know that maybe that's what's fair and just for them, will I stop, or would I say that no, they need to accept? Remember, in Islam, the means and the ends. The means are just as important as the ends. The ends do not justify the means in Islam. I cannot say that I'll be a drug dealer and I'll give money to the mosque and I'll forgive all sins. Doesn't work. You can't ruin society and try to give away some charity. It doesn't work that way. But we work for companies, for example, not always. They do some very noble things for society. Don't get me wrong. They do some phenomenal things for society. They shift the paradigm of society forward. But remember one thing. If you ever have a free product on your phone that you're not paying for, remember you are the product. If you're getting something for free that's fantastic, your data is the product. Your information is the product. So you're not doing it for free. You're paying. In fact, you're getting ripped off, to be honest. But you don't realize this. We don't realize this because that's the world in which we come. And we say that, oh, this is just how things are. But remember one thing. I'm summarizing the entire Qur'an for you in one line. The entire Qur'an. You don't need to go for years on end to study the Qur'an. The entire Qur'an, the theme, one of the main themes is justice. Tawheed, which is the goal of Tawheed. Why Tawheed? So you can get justice in society. And every prophet and emissary of God fought what we call groupthink. You know what groupthink is? Groupthink is the mindset that is the norm in society. But that groupthink mindset of society may not be right. It may not be just. That groupthink in society was leading people to idolatry, which, by the way, the people who were promoting it were not promoting it because they believed in it. They were promoting it because of economics. The Abu Jahals of the world, the people in Meccan society before Islam, they were only promoting it because they were loan sharks. And there were economic incentives for them to do so. So people would come to Mecca from out of town, they would give them a loan on a huge interest rates, on riba rates, on usury rates, and they would benefit from it. So they perpetuated this. Similarly, in our world, will I turn a blind eye to injustice, or will I stand up and say something? By the way, what's beautiful about America is you can actually say something. You know your voice should be heard and will be heard. Maybe not today, but tomorrow perhaps, and another day. But if nothing else, we can say to Allah, I did what I was able to in my ability to try to shift the paradigm in that direction. This is what the Ahlul Bayt stood for. This is what the Ahlul Bayt were fighting for, so that everyone had a chance, regardless of caste, color, creed. Do you not remember where Imam Ali alayhi salam is leading the Muslim world for 4.5 years? There's a moment in time where he sees a man who has gone blind who's in the street. He says, what's going on here? He's begging in the street. It's a Christian man. Did I ask you his religion or anything? So why is he begging? He says, because he has become blind and he's no longer able to work. Imam Ali says, how unjust of us that we used him while he was capable. And now that he's not able to, we leave him to beg in the streets. He says, I will not move until someone comes and gives him a pension from the Baytul Mal. The first example of what we know is pension today. He didn't say that this is not a Muslim. He said this is a Christian. He was, in fact, you'll find the Ahlul Bayt were more stringent on justice when it was a non-Muslim. Imam Ali's own example is there. George Ordak in his book, The Voice of Human Justice, he comes forward and says, who is this Ali? As a Christian Lebanese man, he says, I am baffled by this Ali. Why am I baffled by this Ali? That he takes an individual to court. An individual takes Ali to court because Ali says, this is my saddle. And that person says, I bought it. And then Ali comes, Imam Ali comes, and then the judge addresses him Abul Hasan. And he says that don't call me Abul Hasan. I'm in court here. We're all, what did I say, Lady Justice, blind before the justice. No one is above the law. He's teaching that. He says, look, call me by my name, the same way you call him by his name. Calls him by the name. He says, Ali, Ya Ali, do you have witnesses? Imam Ali knows the law. He's a jurist, he's a judge himself. He knows the law, but he's giving a principle to the world. He says, I don't. And you know that I must award this to him because this is the principle, the law of possession, which we still have in our world, is that principle that he's teaching, the same law of fadak, because Lady Fatima had fadak. They needed to bring evidence that why they took it. Anyways, so at that point in time, this individual left. When they left the court, he comes forward and says, look, you are Abul Hasan, you are Ali ibn Abi Talib? He says, yes. He said, we just left court? He said, yes. So, okay. You are the Khalifa of the Muslim world. You're at the top of the Muslim world. Yep. He said, I took you to court and I won. Yeah. He said, today, he said, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, Ashhadu anna Muhammad. He says, today I have seen the justice of God on earth. That someone, a non-Muslim, took the leader of the Muslims to court in the Muslim state and won. That's justice. You see, when it comes to issues in our world, for example, the conflict in the Middle East, you and I don't support or should not support one particular demographic because they are the same religion as us. It has nothing to do with religion. It has to do with principles. Which means what? If the tables were turned, I would have to err on the side of those who are being oppressed, whether I like it or not. That's true Islam. That's the level that you and I need to get to. Now, come to our world. In the brief moments that we have left, look, do we have justice in our society or not? Imam Ali is teaching us at every moment in time that we must strive for justice. The Christian man, when enemies on the other side, when he's fighting other enemies on the other side, he finishes them off, he comes back to town, their women, the widows, have children who are crying. And they're cursing Ali ibn Abi Talib. They don't know who Ali is, they've just heard the name. And Imam Ali says that, oh lady, what is the matter? It says, Ali goes to the battlefield, kills our husbands, they die, he lives. And she curses him. She says all these types of things. She says, may I help you? May I assist you? Allah. At that point in time, he takes some grain and helps the lady back to her house. And then he says, look, is there something I can assist with? Maybe you have to cook. A mother today, we put so much pressure on our sisters and our mothers. The same thing was similar at that time. Islamically, it's on the male to make sure these things are taken care of. Nonetheless, so you need to look after the kids, or you have to cook. Maybe I can do one of these. So said, okay, maybe you can light the stove and look after the children. I can cook. At that point in time, Amir al-Mu'minin, he goes to the stove and he lights the stove for her to be able to cook. And according to some narration, it says, Ya Ali, remember the fire. Now, why was Imam Ali saying this? For you and I. If Imam Ali is giving a lesson for you and I, he says, remember that. And then he lights it. At that point in time, he comes back, he plays with the children. And at that point in time, she's cooking for the children when a friend of hers emerges. She says, who is this in the house? She says, this is someone who is a well-wisher who came and helped me and look after my things after my husband left. She says, you don't know this is Ali ibn Abi Talib, the Khalifatul Muslimin? That one who she didn't realize she was cursing before. The sincerity of Ali, that he had total freedom because his ego did not control him. He controlled his ego. What does the poet say? Rumi, the best-selling poet after Shakespeare in the English language, even after being translated, who's not a Shia, apparently. Rumi says, as Ali amuz ikhlas amal. Learn from Ali the sincerity of action. When did he say this? When Amr ibn Abdul Wad al-Amiri was there and he was taunting the Muslims. Who's going to fight me? And Ali is going back and forth in battle to the point in time where Ali over surmounts him and is about to finish him off. And the enemy and the Muslims are looking at this from the distance, as are the enemies on the other side. They're all watching this scene. And they notice that when Ali is able to finish his enemy, he steps away. And then he goes back. And then when they asked Ali when he came back, he says, Ali, what happened? We saw that you were in the heat of battle. And at one moment you stepped away and you stepped back. What happened? Explain. Yes, I could have won at that very moment, but I stepped back because when I was at that moment of strength and power that I was able to overcome my enemy, he spat on my face. When he spat on my face, I stepped away. Why? Because I did not want for a moment that my ego intervenes with the will of God. That he was doing this solely for God Almighty, for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That sincerity. That can I help my enemy or not? You know, some of our brethren in Islam, I remember growing up, they weren't Shias, for example, but sometimes you can learn beautiful traits from anybody. We used to be on the basketball court and sometimes things would get heated and you'd have sports happens. And afterwards, somebody would break the ice after the scuffle would happen. Eventually someone would come forward and says, I forgive you for the sake of Allah. I hope you forgive me for the sake of Allah. For the sake of Allah. I haven't heard this as much in our community. I thought it was beautiful. That we keep Allah so much in our mind that we forgive others for the sake of Allah. We are kind to others for the sake of Allah. We are generous to people for the sake of Allah, not for me. There are levels of ilm in Islam. The levels of ilm go to, for example, the first level is when you get a little bit of knowledge, the first level is takabbur, arrogance. The second level, after you get more knowledge according to Islam, is you then bow, humility sets in. And the third level, the highest level of knowledge in Islam is fana, annihilation. I'm not here. It's only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is the level of mastery the Ahlul Bayt were at. So now comes the question in our world, do we have justice in our world or not? And if we don't, what are you and I doing about it? There's something called voting with your wallet. Do you vote with your wallet? Do I vote with my wallet? If a company does something that is questionably moral or immoral, do I not spend money or do I spend money and say, oh, it's not a big deal? Voting with your wallet. That's one way you can do it. What's another way you can do it? Environmental justice, social justice, economic justice. Do we have economic justice in our world? The rich are getting rich, the poor are getting poor. In COVID, when people were struggling, the numbers have gone astronomical. Now that doesn't mean that those people are all villains who are doing this, but at the same time, the question we need to ask is, are we on the side of principle or are we on the side of our own interests? I'll give you an example. And you don't need to tell me this is a 501c3. I'm not going to ask you, and neither should you. If you vote for a particular party, by the way, I'm not for voting for party. You should vote on principle, issues, on particular matter. What if one party is better for my wallet and my bank balance, but the principles may not be the best for society? Who do I vote for? That's a question that each person needs to ask themselves. Am I looking at the community or am I looking at myself? And then you'll get some guidance and understanding of what is justice. Furthermore, environmental justice. In Stanford, you go to Stanford, Just recently, John Doerr is one of the VC legends in Silicon Valley who's invested in Google and every major company. He worked at Intel before, and he just endowed $1.2 billion with a B to Stanford University to set up a school of environmental studies. And he says, this will be the computer science of the future. You know how computer science runs our world today? He says, that's going to be the paradigm of the future. And the way, the trajectory that we are on, we don't know if we will have this planet in 100 years. Where my state, parts of my state, in 50 years will be completely underwater, Florida. Parts of South Florida are already underwater. They used to be there, they're not there anymore. Because of what we're doing to our environment. Are we just about that or not? You want to know why youth aren't coming, for example? I'll tell you exactly why. I experience that many young people, they don't want to talk about Islam anymore. They want to do Islam. I mean, what do you mean do Islam? They say when we talk about in the members, feed the poor, they say, no, I don't want to feed the poor. I don't want to talk about it. Meet me at the soup kitchen. I want to see you there. Let's go do there. Let's have our tabligh there. That's Islam. Wasn't that what Imam Ali was doing? When they say, for example, economic justice, no, don't talk about it. Let's go do it. Let's live Islam as a verb as opposed to as a noun. Actually live it, breathe it, be it. Do you know I've sometimes saw more Islam from non-Muslims? By the way, there are many good Muslims, not all bad. Some really Muslims. But sometimes non-Muslims can teach you more Islam. I'll give you an example. Dr. Noam Chomsky. Noam Chomsky is the most cited professor alive. And he is that individual who's at MIT. And do you know the price that Noam Chomsky, despite being so famous, he's paid a heavy price for his what? Adherence to justice. When I look at Noam Chomsky, I see, although I don't agree again with everything he says, there's many things I don't agree with them, sure. But in certain things I say, this is what Islam was meant to be. This is what a scholar in Islam was meant to be. I'll give you an example. Do you know when the Vietnam War happened in America, he came forward and he told his wife, look, I'm about to speak out against this. And I am ready, and you should be ready as well. I'm going to lose my job. I'm going to speak out because it's unjust and it should not happen. I'm going to speak out, but you may need to become a waitress and I may need to wash dishes. Imagine for a moment that this is the cost and the price that one may need to deal with, that they are a renowned professor at MIT, and they were willing to give all of that up on a principle of justice. Furthermore, our world, do you know how much incentives? You would think in our world we have justice. Do we truly have justice in our world? I'm saying this because Islam requires that you and I try to do whatever is in our ability to bring justice for everyone, regardless of caste, color, or creed, regardless of black, white, does not matter. I need to fight for justice for every human being. That doesn't always mean pick up a sword or something like that. That means speak out, write, do something. Do you know that it was in all of the press that in the 1950s and 1960s, what I'm saying is not secret, that in the 1950s and the 1960s, the sugar lobby in the United States of America paid off the New England Medical Journal and the likes of Harvard to divert attention away from the negative impact of sugar on the heart and to focus more on other things such as fat. That's 60, 70 years of research going in the wrong direction, perhaps. It's unjust. Do you know, by the way, when I went to Europe, they eat a lot less high fructose corn syrup than you and I. In fact, it's banned there. But we eat it. Why? Because the sugar lobby in America is very, very organized and they control the price of sugar. And this happens every single day. Now, if I work for a sugar company, if I speak out, that's tough. It's not always easy. But you see, this is what Islam was after. That I sacrifice my personal interest for the group interest. And if everyone gets the group interest, then we're all happy. It's not really a sacrifice then, because everyone has a fair share. But greed is what takes over. Greed is what destroys a society. Furthermore, every time I give this example of sugar lobby, every time someone in the community tells me a new example that I didn't know of. For example, I was in Los Angeles, and they told me, said, after you mentioned this injustice, do you want to know something? I said, yeah, sure. You know that Los Angeles, LA was supposed to have a public transport system like New York, like Tokyo, like London? I said, really? I didn't know that, because as Los Angeles is considered a failure of a city in terms of city dynamics. Like, it's so spread out that it takes forever to go from one part to the other. I said, yes. I said, then what happened? He said, the car lobby, GM and the likes, lobbied extensively to make sure that never happens, because their business would not profit if those cars were not bought. Second example. Third example. psychiatry, how were certain opioid medicines made normalized? If you read the 1990s and how it was made normalized, the political level that they went to make sure that people take opioids was one of the most unjust or unjust things. The question you need to ask, the question I need to ask is, do I make the issue? Do I make the environment? Do I make the society? Do I contribute to injustice? Or do I take a stand and speak out against it? You know, we as Americans, we live in one of the most amazing places, and there's huge benefits of freedom that we enjoy. But at the same time, us as tax-paying members of society, there are many things that happen overseas that we are complicit in because of our tax-paying, because of our being silent on matters. But you know what's beautiful about this? If we actually make a conscious effort to actually do something, we can do a lot in a short period of time. Take the example of the Jewish community in America over the last 100 years. By the way, I was reading an article that was titled The New Jews. Do you know who it was about? It was about the Hindu community in Northeast America. They said that they've done exactly what the Jewish community has done, but they did it 10 times faster. Do you know that Goldman Sachs estimated that the wealth of the Indian community in America is over $1 trillion? And they're working together. Are we working together? I hope we are. We're not. Maybe it's time we start doing that. That we realize that we can work together to make our society a better place. This is what the paradigm of justice was seeking. Islam is not only for these four walls. My Islam and your Islam is just as much for that person who's not a Muslim. I need to stand for that person's rights. If my company is making a stand, and by the way, hats off to those people who are in prominent companies, and they do these emails and these open letters, and they say that we are not on board with this. This is not right. Do you know who the biggest lobbyists in Washington, D.C. are right now? The tech industry. The tech industry is the biggest lobbying group in all of, and they're spending the most money, more than the Middle East Gulf nation. That's a lot of money. We hope it's for justice. We hope it's for righteousness. If it's not, Islam is right here, right now. Karbala is right here, right now. It's not down the line. When we don't stand for these things, that's when we start losing young ones. That's when we start people saying, oh, you're just talking about justice. You're just talking about equality. You're not doing it. You're not living it. It's all talk. I want to see it in action. And by the way, there are people doing very good work. Some publicly, some privately. And hats off to you and keep going. The final thing that we need to remember is this is what Imam Hussein was seeking to reestablish when Rasulullah got rid of the caste system. You know the caste system? In Hinduism, there's this caste system. For example, at the tops you have the Brahmins, then for example you have the warriors, then you have the merchants, and then down the list you have the untouchables. And by the way, do you know that this nonsense has seeped into our society? In Silicon Valley, there were people who were from the untouchable caste that had gotten into upper management positions, and below them, there were people who were from Brahmin classes in the top classes. And they said, we can't work under somebody who's untouchable. And what was the response? They said, leave that nonsense in your side of the world. It's not going to fly here. By the way, I had one of my relatives was working in one of these very famous consumer goods products companies, by the way. And it's interesting. I can't take the name, but you will get it in essence. In the East, they were selling these products called like Fair and Lonely or something like that, like the skin color products. And then they were saying, why don't we sell this in America and the United Kingdom and the West? We can get a huge profit. They said, then they pitched the idea. They said that, have you lost your mind? Do you want our whole company to go down under? That can be sold there. There's one level of racism. There's varying degrees of racism. There's also something called colorism. Have you heard of colorism? We have colorism in our communities many times. Oh, that person's so fair-skinned. That person's so light. Remnants of colonialism, remnants of inferiority complexes. When the Ahlul Bayt came forward, they said, look, there's no color. Why do you see color? See the person's heart. That's all that matters. See their good intent. Why are you so focused on the externality? But when you look at our material world, the cars, the glitz, the glamour, the Hollywood, the house, we're still stuck on the externalities. We haven't been able to see beyond that. And that's the travesty. That's the tragedy that we need to be mindful of. On the day of Ashura, the narrations say Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam had many noble companions. There was one companion by the name of John ibn Huway. John was someone who was from Abyssinian descent from this region. And he was someone who was a servant or slave in the house of Abu Dharr. Now, a question that people ask, and I want to give this as a something for you to reflect on. I'm not giving my own view. I met Karen Armstrong. Karen Armstrong is an author who's written on numerous religions. She's written on Christianity, Judaism, and Islam. And she said, when I met her, I said, why is it that Judaism, Christianity, Islam, the Abrahamic faiths, they did not outwardly, right away, condemn and ban slavery? Why not? Now, Rasulullah said no caste system, no white-black preference, but slavery, why? It's a good question. She said, she looked right back at me, and she said, we're still slaves. We're just industrial slaves. And that's the reality of the matter. We may be in a little bit of a better position, but we're still not fully free until everyone is free. But really reflect on that. It takes a week or two for that statement to set in. How many friends that I've had who were working for these Fortune 500 companies, they were on vacation. They had to come back to work while on vacation. Said, your time is not your time. We own you. That cell phone is that chain. We own you. Don't own yourself. We're still slaves. Islam came to eradicate that slavery. We are all servants of Allah, slaves of one entity, God. Everyone's equal before God. John was in this camp. John was this person who was a slave of Allah. By the way, the Ahlul Bayt spent a lot of money to free slaves. So they taught us a principle that you do whatever is in your ability to free them. Educate them. Imam Sajjad would purchase slaves, free them. Why? When they would give them water. When they would leave, they would become ambassadors for Islam with the akhlaq of the Ahlul Bayt. John was a servant of Abu Dharr. He then went to the house of Amir al-Mu'mineen, and then he went to the house of Imam Hassan and the house of Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam. And eventually Imam Hussein said that I make you free, you can go where you want. He says that I can't leave this household. This household is so perfect. The ethics, the morality, the goodness in this family, I don't find it anywhere else. He went to the house of Imam Sajjad. Imam Sajjad took him in his house. On the plains of Karbala, he came with the family. The narrations say he was very elderly, 90 years old. And on the day of Ashura, Imam Hussein Islam says to him that you can leave. John, they're not after you, they're after us, they're after our family. You don't need to be caught in the middle of this. He says, go, you're free to go. John looks back at Imam Hussein, he says, look, in the good times you took care of me. And now when it's hard times and difficult times on you, you told me to leave. I can't do it. Give me the permission to fight. Imam Hussein is reluctant, but he persuades Imam Hussein and he gets the permission. He goes to the battlefield. And do you know the arrogance on the other side? When John came to fight on the other side, we still have this in our communities, unfortunately. People think someone's better than some group. Someone thinks I'm from here, I'm better. I'm from here, I'm better. I'm here, from here, I'm better. They were so arrogant that they said, John, this slave who until yesterday was a slave, we're going to kill him with our swords. He's not worthy of our swords. You know what they did? They said to kill him with stones, throw stones. They took stones and they began to throw it at John. This elderly man, they threw it, he began to bleed. When he began to bleed, the narrations say that at some point they said he's had enough. They left him. Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam comes to John. When he comes to John, he takes the head of John in his lap. And John in his final breaths, he says, Ya ibn al-Zahra, O son of Fatima al-Zahra, O son of Rasulullah, have I been faithful to you? Have I done my duty to you? He says, John, may Allah reward you for your effort. You have truly been faithful. But there's one moment that I want to share with you. That this individual, this person, do you know what the narrations say that Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam did to John? This individual, the people on the other side were racists and bigots. Imam al-Hussein said, there is no difference in the eyes of Allah between us. What did he do? Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam, he took his cheek and he put it on the cheek of John, a person who until yesterday was a servant. Do you know how big of a statement this was? Do you know who else Imam al-Hussein put his cheek on? The narrations say when Imam Hussein's son Ali al-Akbar fell to the ground, Imam Hussein saw his son. When he saw Ali al-Akbar, the narrations say the pain engulfed Imam Hussein to the point that he bowed down and he took the cheek of his own cheek, the cheek that Rasulullah used to kiss, and he put it on the cheek of Ali al-Akbar. He says, my son Ali, ala dunya ba'daka al-afa. My son Ali, after you, there is dust on this earth. Sallallahu alayka ya Rasulullah. Sallallahu alayka ya Rasulullah. الله عليك يا فاطمة الزهراء سيدة النساء العالمين. الله عليك يا حسن المجتبى. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين معة الحسين يا حسين يا حسين.
Ya Hussein. Ya Hussein. Ya Hussein.
Ya Hussein, 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 Ya Hussein. شیر خدا کا ہوں بیٹا مجھ سے نہ کوئی بچے گا عباس ہے نام میرا شیر خدا کا ہوں بیٹا مجھ سے نہ کوئی بچے گا عباس ہے نام میرا بچپن میں لوری سنا کر مجھ کو سکھائی ہے مادر سن لو ذرا میرے بیٹے زینب کو ہے ناز تم پر بولو ہے شبیر آقا ہاں بس میں نوکر ہوں اس کا عباس ہے نام میرا اے خدا کا ہوں بیٹا مجھ سے نہ کوئی بچے گا عباس ہے نام میرا شہزادیوں کا جگر ہوں ہاشم کے گھر کا کمر ہوں زہرا نے جو رب سے مانگی میں وہ دعا کا اصل ہوں سلار ہوں میں حرم کا حقدار ہوں میں علم کا عباس ہے نام میرا شیر خدا کا ہوں بیٹا مجھ سے نہ کوئی بچے گا عباس ہے نام میرا میں جوش میں آ گیا ہوں خیبر کا منظر دکھا دوں تلوار بن بھی تمہارے آ کر میں گردن اٹھا دوں رونا ورنہ کروں گا مشکل میں جینا تمہارا عباس ہے نام میرا شیر خدا کا ہوں بیٹا مجھ سے نہ کوئی بچے گا عباس ہے نام میرا ہمت اگر ہے کسی میں اس شیر سے آ کے لڑنا مقتل سے کیوں بھاگتے ہو لاکھوں ہو تم میں ہو تنہا ایک ہاتھ میں چھین لوں گا دریا کا ہر ایک قطرہ عباس ہے نام میرا شیر خدا کا ہوں بیٹا مجھ سے نہ کوئی بچے گا عباس ہے نام میرا میں نے سکینہ کا کوزہ باندھا ہے اپنے علم سے پروان کی مجھ کو اپنی مشکو بچاؤں گا دم سے بچوں سے میں نے کہا تھا کوئی رہے گا نہ پیاسا عباس ہے نام میرا شیر خدا کا ہوں بیٹا مجھ سے نہ کوئی بچے گا عباس ہے نام میرا دریا میں پرچم کو گھایا ہاتھوں میں پانی اٹھایا انتہائی وفا کی لب پر نہ پانی کو لایا बोला के कैसे पीऊंगा प्यासी है मेरी सकीना अब्बास है नाम मेरा शेर खुदा का हूँ बेटा मुझसे ना कोई बचेगा अब्बास है नाम मेरा दरिया पे अब आ गया हूँ मशकी सभी भर लिया हूँ घोड़े पे होके सवारी खेमों को अब लौटता हूँ घर पे खड़ी है सकीना तकती है वो मेरा रास्ता अब्बास है नाम मेरा शेर खुदा का हूँ बेटा मुझसे ना कोई बचेगा अब्बास है नाम मेरा अफसोस कट के गिरे थे गाजी के बाजू जमीन पर मशकी जबी चिद गया और जी से गिरा इब्ने हैदर अब आके भूली सकीना आता है क्यों अब नारा अब्बास है नाम मेरा शेर खुदा का हूँ बेटा मुझसे ना कोई बचेगा अब्बास है नाम मेरा
يا زينب وين سويتي عز حسين يمشتي فيك عداك وين لا وين يا زينب وين سويتي يمشتي فيك عداك وين لا وين بهيدا لو بنشتي لا توني من فوق الهزل باكر تطيحين بعد ومن فوق الهزل بالك تطيحين الابيات خادم الحسين سيد فاضل الخرسان وممنون ممنون عمي ممنون هيدي لو بيجيتي لا توني هيدي لو بيجيتي لا توني اي من فوق الهزل بالك يطيحين اي راح الحين بس قاعدة تصلي اي فاتحة العزيز بنص دواوين اي كم موكب عازة هناك تنصبي اي حسين وين راسه وخنصره وين اي كبده من العطش مكسور من الصيف اي ياهو الشيع ومنه المصلي اي وعن عباس لو سيدوك تبكي اي عبتي كافي لك ما عنده شفيه اي الايد مشتفه بمنتل طبيب الطب اي والاسياط العيد بمنتل شقفه اي ولو شفت الطشت قرآن تقري اي تاليها بخرابتهم تقعدي اي تبكي الروس لو سمعوك تبكي اي تبكي الروس لو سمعوك تبكي اي هو يوادي بغرب ما نامت في العين اي اشمر يديك اشمرها اي هو يوادي بغرب ما نامت في العين اي لا عباس يبرالك ولا حسين ايه لا عباس يبرالك ولا حسين
میخوام به نوکری فقط عادت بکنم نمیخوام به نوکری
هرچی بلده
فقط عادت بکنم دوست دارم هر جا میرم از تو صحبت بکنم شیعتی مهما شرم تو ما به عقل الفت کرونی تا قیامت به خدا تو قلبمونی او سمعتم به قریب او شهید فندبونی الهی فدای اون نوای خونی همه دنیا تو چشمای ترت بود همه دنیا تو چشمای ترت بود آبی که بستن رود مهر مادرت بود آبی که بستن رود مهر مادرت بود نمیخوام به نوکری فقط عادت بکنم نمیخوام به نوکری فقط عادت بکنم دوست دارم هر جا میرم از تو صحبت کنم نمیخوام به نوکری فقط عادت بکنم هر جا میرم خاک کربلا حسین خونه آخرته خاک کربلا حسین خونه آخرته روزه باز واسه ما گریه مادرته گریه السبت الذي من غير جرم القتلوني آره این شده جواب به مهربونی و به جرد خیل بعد قتل عمدن سهگونی چه خوبه وقتی خودت روزه میخونی درست همون جا که صحبت سرت بود درست همون جا که صحبت سرت بود آقا فقط فکرت پیش خواهرت بود آقا فقط فکرت پیش دخترت بود این از همه سنگین تر باور کن درست همون جا که صحبت سرت بود آقا فقط فکرت پیش همسرت بود نمیخوام به نوکری فقط عادت بکنم نمیخوام به نوکری خدا نکنه عادتمون بشه فقط دوست دارم هر جا میرم از تو صحبت بکنم فقط عادت بکنم یه دعا برای خودمون الهی آتش بیا که بمیره نوکره الهی آتش بیا انشالله منم با لب تشنه سرمو از تنش جدا کنم برا تو حسین الهی آتش میاد که بمیره نوکره سر سوزنی آتش نرسه به اصغره سر سوزنی آتش أسر ليتكم في يوم عاشوراء جميعا تنظروني شنیدم میخواستی که آب برسونی حیف از دست غیل طفلی فابو ان یرحمونی هر کاری کردی که شب من نمونی همش توی گوشم
Hussein, 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 بلا والوں پہ یہ کیسا محرم آیا کربلا والوں پہ یہ کیسا محرم آیا کربلا والوں پہ یہ کیسا محرم آیا کربلا والوں پہ یہ کیسا محرم آیا خون ٹپکتا ہوا عباس کا پرچم آیا کربلا والوں پہ یہ کیسا محرم آیا کربلا والوں پہ یہ کیسا محرم آیا جیسے جیسے میرے غازی کا علم جھکتا گیا جیسے جیسے میرے غازی کا علم جھکتا گیا پشت میں حضرت شبیر کے بھی غم آیا خون ٹپکتا ہوا عباس کا پرچم آیا کربلا والوں پہ یہ کیسا محرم آیا کربلا والوں پہ یہ کیسا محرم آیا کربلا دیکھ لے اسلام بچانے کے لیے کربلا دیکھ لے اسلام بچانے کے لیے ساتھ کمبے کھولیے وارث آدم آیا خون ٹپکتا ہوا عباس کا پرچم آیا کربلا والوں پہ یہ کیسا محرم آیا کربلا والوں پہ یہ کیسا محرم آیا ظالموں اس کو دو بوند پلا دو پانی ظالموں اس کو دو بوند پلا دو پانی اب لبوں پر ملے بے شیر کا ہے دم آیا خون ٹپکتا ہوا عباس کا پرچم آیا کربلا والوں پہ یہ کیسا محرم آیا کربلا والوں پہ یہ کیسا محرم آیا سارے موسم تو گزر جاتے ہیں آ کر لیکن سارے موسم تو گزر جاتے ہیں آ کر لیکن بس ہمیشہ کے لیے موسم ماتم آیا خون ٹپکتا ہوا عباس کا پرچم آیا کربلا والوں پہ یہ کیسا محرم آیا کربلا والوں پہ یہ کیسا محرم آیا یا حسین 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 کوئی معصوم زندہ میں نہ تنہا ہو یا رب کوئی معصوم زندہ میں نہ تنہا ہو یا رب کوئی معصوم زندہ میں نہ تنہا ہو یا رب کوئی معصوم زندہ میں نہ تنہا ہو یا رب کوئی معصوم زندہ میں نہ تنہا ہو یا رب کوئی معصوم زندہ میں نہ تنہا ہو پابند ٹھاؤ آئے پابند ٹھاؤ آئے رونے پہ نہ تیرا ہو یا رب کوئی معصوم زندہ میں نہ تنہا ہو یا رب کوئی معصوم زندہ میں نہ تنہا ہو جس کو نیند آتی شبیر کے سینے پر جس کو نیند آتی شبیر کے سینے پر زندہ کر زندہ ہے زندہ کر زندہ اس کے لیے رضا ہو یا رب کوئی معصوم زندہ میں نہ تنہا ہو یا رب کوئی معصوم زندہ میں نہ تنہا ہو زندان سے آتی تھی آواز سکنے کی زندانوں سے آتی تھی آواز سکنے کی جیسے کہ سکین بھاگو ہر جیسے کہ سکین بھاگو ہر زندان رو رہا ہو یا رب کوئی معصوم زندہ میں نہ تنہا ہو یا رب کوئی معصوم زندہ میں نہ تنہا ہو ٹکرائے نہ ہو کیوں کر زندہ کی دیواروں سے ٹکرائے نہ وہ کیوں کر زندہ کی دیواروں سے بھائی سے اور پھوپھی سے ہائے بھائی سے اور روحی سے جس کو جدا کیا ہو یا رب کوئی معصوم زندہ میں نہ تنہا ہو یا رب کوئی معصوم زندہ میں نہ تنہا ہو زندان میں نجبی یاد آئی سکینہ کی زندان میں نجبی یاد آئی سکینہ کی دل رو رو کہہ رہا ہے آئے دل رو رو کہہ رہا ہے اب نہ اجالا ہو یا رب کوئی معصوم زندہ میں نہ تنہا ہو یا رب کوئی معصوم زندہ میں نہ تنہا ہو یا رب کوئی معصوم زندہ میں نہ تنہا ہو یا رب کوئی معصوم زندہ میں نہ تنہا ہو پابند نہ ہو آئے ہائے پابند نہ ہو آئے رونے پہ نہ تیرا ہو یا رب کوئی معصوم زندہ میں نہ تنہا ہو یا رب کوئی معصوم زندہ میں نہ تنہا ہو Thou sing, 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 thou sing. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما سبحان الله والحمد لله ولا إله إلا الله والله أكبر ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله أشهد أن عليا ولي الله أشهد أن عليا حجة الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح حي على خير العمل حي على الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وآله وسلم.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن عليا ولي الله أشهد أن عليا حجة الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح حي على خير الأمل حي على خير الأمل قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله الصلاة الله أكبر بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إنا أعطيناك الكوثر فصل لربك وانحر إن شانئك هو الأبتر سبحان ربي العظيم سمع الله لمن سمع الله أكبر سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الله أكبر استغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه الله أكبر سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الله أكبر بحول الله وقوته يقول بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم إياك نعبد ونستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار صل على محمد وآل محمد سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي العظيم سمع الله لمن الله أكبر سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى الله أكبر استغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه الله أكبر سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى. الله أكبر الحمد لله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له عبده ورسوله. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آله لله وقوة. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي العظيم. صلى على محمد وعلى سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى. أستغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى. يا ولي الأرض الله أكبر. بسم الله وبالله الحمد لله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له ورسوله. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. السلام عليك أيها النبي ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام علينا وعلى عباد الله الصالحين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي والذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على اللهم صل على الله الذي لا إله إلا هو الحي القيوم الرحمن الرحيم ذو الجلال والإكرام وأتوب إليه. أستغفر الله الذي لا إله إلا هو الحي القيوم الرحمن الرحيم ذو الجلال والإكرام. أستغفر الله الذي لا إله إلا هو الحي القيوم الرحمن الرحيم ذو الجلال والإكرام. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم إني أسألك موجبات رحمتك وعزائم مغفرتك والنجاة من النار ومن كل بلية والفوز بالجنة والرضوان في دار السلام وجوار نبيك محمد عليه وآله السلام. اللهم ما بنا من نعمة فمنك لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الله أكبر الله أكبر. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن عليا ولي الله أشهد أن عليا حجة الله. حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح حي على خير الأمل حي على خير الأمل. قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة. الله أكبر الله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله. صلاة الاسم. الله أكبر الله أكبر. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. الله أكبر. استغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي. الله أكبر. بحول الله وقوته يقوم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد ولم يولد ولم يكن له اللهم صل على محمد وآله ربنا اغفر لي ولوالدي وتوب ربي ارحمني يا ربي صغيرا ربي صل على محمد وآله. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى. الله أكبر. استغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي. الله أكبر. الحمد لله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. اللهم صل على محمد. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي العظيم. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي. الله أكبر. استغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله. الله أكبر. بفضل الله وبرحمته يقوم. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده. صل على محمد. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي. الله أكبر. استغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. يا ولي العافية نسألك العافية. الله أكبر. بسم الله وبالله الحمد لله لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. السلام عليك أيها النبي ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام علينا وعلى عباد الله الصالحين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. اللهم صل على محمد اللهم صل على محمد اللهم صل على محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. استغفر الله الذي لا إله إلا هو الرحيم الجلال والإكرام. استغفر الله الذي لا إله إلا هو الحي القيوم الرحمن الرحيم الجلال والإكرام. استغفر الله الذي لا إله إلا هو الحي الرحمن الرحيم الجلال والإكرام وأتوب إليه.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم إنه ليس لي علم بموضع رزقي وإنما أطلبه بخطوات تخطر على قلبي فأجول في طلبه البلدان فأنا فيما أنا طالب كالحيران لا أدري في سهل هو أم في جبل أم في أرض أم في سماء أم في بر أم في بحر وعلى يدي من ومن قبل من وقد علمت أن علمه عندك وأسبابه بيدك وأنت الذي تقسمه بلطفك وتسببه برحمتك. اللهم فصل على محمد وآله واجعل يا ربي رزقك لي واسعا ومطلبه سهلا ومأخذه قريبا ولا تعنني بطلب ما لم تقدر لي فيه رزقا فإنك غني عن عذابي وأنا فقير إلى رحمتك. وصل على محمد وآله وجد على عبدك بفضلك إنك ذو فضل عظيم.
As we complete our prayers tonight, let us remember those people who are in difficult situations, who are in hospitals, and those who are imprisoned unjustly, those who are stuck in conflict zones, refugee camps, people who might endure economic hardship. Let us all together pray.
أما يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه ويكشف السوء 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 أما يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه ويكشف السوء.
The sisters have requested Surah Al-Fatiha for the sponsors of the Tabarruk night by Brother Abbas and Fatima Rizvi. Means in the Rizvi, Jafri, and Merali and Panju families. Also for the Marubins of the financial supporters, especially Sister Aida Salman last year. We lost also Sister Fatima's brother last year. So all these people are here also. That's where let's remember them. Let's also remember all those family and friends. Honorable with us. And tonight we received news that Ghulam Bash Sharif, a dear friend of mine, passed away in Arusha.
Oh.
The watches, yeah.
السلام عليك يا رسول الله. السلام عليك يا أمير المؤمنين. السلام عليك يا فاطمة الزهراء سيدتي نساء العالمين. السلام عليك يا حسن المجتبى. السلام عليك يا خديجة الكبرى. السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك. عليكم مني جميعا سلام الله أبدا ما بكيت وبكي الليل والنهار ولا جعله الله آخر العهد مني لزيارتكم. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين وعلى أخيك العباس وأختك زينب وبنتك سكينة جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام عليكم يا أئمة المسلمين علي بن الحسين ومحمد بن علي وجعفر بن محمد وموسى بن جعفر وعلي بن موسى ومحمد بن علي وعلي بن محمد والحسن بن علي جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام عليك يا مولانا يا صاحب العصر والزمان سيدي الأمان الأمان الأمان. السلام عليك يا شريك القرآن. السلام عليك يا كعبة الإيمان. السلام عليك يا إمام الإنس والجان. عجل الله تعالى فرجك وسهل الله مخرجك وظهورك ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم على محمد وآله. اللهم كن لوليك الحجة بن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا دليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك توعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين.
Sister brothers, thank you all for coming tonight. This brings us to the end of our program. Please help yourself with the barruk. A reminder again, please refrain from hugging and shaking. Okay? That's your protection. Thank you for coming. See you tomorrow at 7:30. It's getting better. Hopefully tomorrow will be even better. I change the microphone. Yeah, Oh, because when you bring it close, it cuts that noise.
Oh, okay.
I was trying to get your head down.
Yeah, I thought you were trying to bring me in the camera.
The moon of Muharram, times of sadness have come. The crescent has now arrived, casting gloom on Karbala, casting gloom on Karbala. The moon of Muharram, times of sadness have come. The crescent has now arrived, casting gloom on Karbala, casting gloom on Karbala. Betrayal by the Kufans set this moon on its course, calling out for their guide. Treachery with no remorse, Muslim and his sons. What a tragedy, oh what calamity. The moon bleeds to foresee, the moon bleeds to foresee. The moon of Muharram, times of sadness have come. The crescent has now arrived, casting gloom on Karbala, casting gloom on Karbala. On the 9th it heard the prayers of those pure souls, fought the rising sun for. Perhaps this could be its role. Akbar's azan so clear, this moon filled with fear. How will it possibly arise and see the state of those dear, and see the state of those dear? The moon of Muharram, times of sadness have come. The crescent has now arrived, casting gloom on Karbala, casting gloom on Karbala. It saw the 6-month infant, no water but an arrow. That night it shone its light on Rabab, filled with such sorrow. To see my asghar I crave, I hear nothing but his cries. Oh son, please do not arise, and with this mother sympathize, and with this mother sympathize. The moon of Muharram, times of sadness have come. The crescent has now arrived, casting gloom on Karbala, casting gloom on Karbala. Witnessed it the trampling on Sham-e-Ghariba, saw that night the terror, bodies scattered afar, tents looted and on fire, earrings snatched from Ruqayyah. This moon also in such pains, this household bound in chains, this household bound in chains. The moon of Muharram, times of sadness have come. The crescent has now arrived, casting gloom on Karbala, casting gloom on Karbala. From this month my baby had to wander veilless. Zahra's grave is restless for her daughter princess, the cloak of purity. For this mother so holy, the beloved of Fatima, paraded in the bazaar, paraded in the bazaar. The moon of Muharram, times of sadness have come. The crescent has now arrived, casting gloom on Karbala, casting gloom on Karbala, casting gloom on Karbala.